lessons, we're introducing rough and smooth. So we're just doing a very simple introduction to this. We have rough, rough. And ideally, you would have this like laying on the ground in front of you guys. So, rough. And you can introduce all these names if you need to. Rough, smooth, rough, smooth. Typically, we don't go straight into a naming lesson on this, but you could if it's an older child, especially. But lots of exploration with this. If you're ready to go into a naming lesson, you can. I recommend doing a little bit of work on the second tablet, which is a board. I'm sorry, they're not tablets. They're boards. Is the next activity or tablets. But these are all the same gradation of rough. So we have rough, smooth, rough, smooth, rough, smooth, rough, smooth, rough, smooth. And I'm moving from left to right based on. And then if it's an older verbal child, you can encourage them to say it as they go. So rough, smooth, rough, smooth, rough, smooth. And so in that way, you're kind of starting the process of the naming lesson with them. Once they're done with that, you can go back and you can ask them to feel rough. And feel smooth. Okay. And then, of course, moving to the third period. What is this? And anytime that it has to do with the texture, I always encourage you to have the child actually feel it before they say it. So feel this and tell me what it is. Feel this and tell me what it is. Because part of the control of error with this activity is that it actually, you can see that it's something different. So they might just have it memorized based on what it looks like. You want them to know it based on what it feels like, though. And then the third board does differentiate the roughness here. So we have rough, rougher, rougher, rougher. And on this one, I don't typically go the opposite way because it would just be less rough, less rough. It's not really getting smoother. It's just not as rough as the previous one. So rough, rougher, 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 roughest. And then you can do a naming lesson on that too, where you have rough and roughest. Which one is the roughest? And then if you just ask which one is rough, any of them would be the correct answer technically. So it's not a right or wrong with that. But just exploring those concepts. And once a child has a basic understanding of what's rough and what's smooth, then you would want to move into the tablets, where we're really focusing on rough, rougher, and roughest. And this is a matching exercise. So each of these tablets has a match. And on here, it's really isolating the tactile sense, because although there is some variation in the way that these look, they all do look very similar. And so you really do have to feel. So what I recommend is putting one in the corner where this is kind of your base. You're using one hand to feel, and then you can feel those are the same. And I always compare. Yeah, this is matching. And then I always like to compare using the same hand because different hands can feel texture slightly differently. And then you can encourage the mouth. Those feel the same. So this one can be a collaborative lesson after you've introduced the concept. Then you can get the child's opinion if they think that it feels similar. Because obviously they can't just watch you do it. They need to experience it by feeling the textures within them too. So you, in the beginning, you guide them to find the correct one, and you can start with extremes. So feel that one. Feel that one. Are they the same or different?
No, different.
Hang on, this one's a little bit funky.
Yeah.
These ones are actually really hard.
Yeah. Different. Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. That one. That one. That one. I've actually never found a set that is like so distinctly.
Is it because they're older?
No, I think it's because they're newer.
Oh, really?
Like they're hard. Like most of the time, a lot of like the pieces have like worn off, so they get like really smooth almost. These are all pretty rough. Like, I don't even know. So if you're working with toddlers and you want to do an activity like this, you can make it not so difficult by not including all of them in there. So we could have the extremes. So like this one is obviously very rough. It's probably the roughest of the group. And then like, these are like the smoothest. They're still rough, but they're the smoothest of the group. And then you have like your middle ground. So you might like throw out the ones that are super similar so that it's easier to grade them and match them. So there's matching, which is pairing the two together, and then there's grading, and that's where you really only need one of the set, and you're figuring out which one is rough, rougher, and roughest. Would you agree with that being rough, rough, and roughest? So you can do either one of those types of activities with